Imagine this. You're driving and someone cuts you off. Your heart races, your hands grip the wheel, and for a moment you're ready to react. But what if, just for a second, you paused? What if, instead of letting that moment steal your peace, you chose a different response? Now think beyond traffic, a heated argument, a workplace challenge, a personal setback. How different would life feel if we mastered the art of choosing peace over reaction? Today, let's explore the secret to true inner strength. Most people go through life believing that reactions are automatic. Something happens and we respond immediately, instinctively, without thinking. Someone criticizes us and we snap back. A challenge arises and we panic. A stressful situation unfolds and we let frustration take over. We tell ourselves, I had no choice. That's just how I felt. But that's not true. Between what happens to us and how we respond to it, there is always a space. And in that space lies our greatest power, the ability to choose our response. This space is often microscopic, just a fraction of a second, but it exists. And the people who have mastered inner strength are not those who never feel emotions. They are the ones who have learned to expand that space, to pause, to think, to choose. Think about the moments in life where you've reacted out of impulse. Maybe it was a heated argument where words flew faster than reason. Maybe it was a moment of fear where you backed down when you should have stepped forward. Maybe it was frustration that led to a decision you later regretted. In every one of those instances, the reaction felt immediate, like there was no gap, no time to think, no choice in the matter. But if you look closely, the space was there, you just didn't use it. Now think about those who seem unshakable, the leaders, the mentors, the individuals who carry themselves with a sense of calm even in chaos. They aren't emotionless, they aren't unaffected, they simply know how to pause before they act. This pause is not weakness, it is control. The problem is we live in a world that encourages reaction. Everything around us is designed for instant responses. Breaking news flashes across our screens. Messages demand replies within seconds. Social media tempts us to fire back at every comment. But reaction is rarely wisdom. It is simply the brain's first draft. And the first draft is almost never the best one. When we train ourselves to create space, to delay reaction by even a few seconds, we begin to see things differently. That angry email we were about to send, it might not seem so necessary after a moment of thought. That impulsive decision to quit, to walk away, to lash out, it suddenly loses its grip when we give ourselves time to reflect. But this isn't easy, because our brains are wired for fight or flight. When we feel threatened, physically, emotionally, or even socially, our natural instinct is to act immediately. This was useful when we were facing real survival threats thousands of years ago, but today, most of what triggers us isn't life or death. It's an ego wound, a momentary discomfort, a challenge to our patience. And in those moments, the worst thing we can do is react without thinking. So how do we create space between stimulus and response? We train for it. Just like a muscle, self-control is something we develop with practice. And it starts with small moments. Instead of replying instantly to a frustrating message, we take a deep breath. Instead of snapping back at criticism, we wait 5 seconds before responding. Instead of making a big decision in the heat of emotion, we sleep on it. With time, these small pauses become habits, and before we know it, we are no longer controlled by our emotions. We are in control of them. Because the strongest people in the world are not those who suppress their emotions. They are the ones who own the space between what happens and what they do next. Emotions are powerful. They can fuel us, inspire us, and push us forward. But they can also cloud our judgment, distort reality, and make us act in ways we later regret. Think about the last time you were truly angry, really deeply frustrated. In that moment, it felt real, almost permanent, like the frustration would never fade, like the situation would always feel that intense. But then hours later, days later, you felt different. The anger subsided, the frustration lost its grip. And if you reacted impulsively in that moment, you were left with something emotions don't erase, your actions. This is the truth about emotions. They are temporary. They rise and fall like waves. They feel all-consuming in the moment, but they always pass. The problem is we often make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. How many times have we said something we wish we could take back, made a choice out of fear that we later regretted, let frustration push us into a decision that wasn't right. The emotion that led to those actions eventually faded, but the consequences of those actions remained. Because emotions are not reality. They are a reaction to reality. They don't always tell the truth. They don't always reflect the bigger picture. They are our mind's way of processing the world, but they are not instructions. A moment of sadness can convince us that things will never get better. A moment of fear can make us think we are incapable. A moment of anger can drive us to destroy what we've worked hard to build. But if we wait, if we pause, if we step back, we start to see emotions for what they really are: temporary signals, not permanent states. This is where emotional resilience begins, not in ignoring emotions, but in understanding them, in realizing that we can feel deeply without being controlled by those feelings, that we can acknowledge anger without letting it dictate our words, that we can experience fear without allowing it to make our choices for us. Because while emotions come and go, actions last. They shape our relationships, our reputation, our future. The strongest people in the world are not those who feel less. They are the ones who have trained themselves to act wisely despite what they feel in the moment. And when we learn this, when we stop making permanent choices based on passing emotions, everything changes. Our relationships improve, our decision-making sharpens, our inner peace strengthens. Because life isn't about avoiding emotions, it's about learning to act in a way that we can stand by long after the emotion is gone. For most of us, the word detachment carries a negative connotation. We associate it with coldness, indifference, or a lack of care. We assume that to be detached means to be disconnected, unfeeling, or distant from the world around us, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Detachment is not about caring less. It's about caring with clarity. It's about being fully present without being controlled by circumstances, emotions, or external opinions. It's about maintaining inner strength when everything around us is chaotic. Most of the stress, frustration, and emotional turmoil we experience comes from attachment. Attachment to specific outcomes, to people's approval, to things unfolding exactly as we imagined. We grip tightly to our expectations, and when reality doesn't match them, we suffer. We become reactive, anxious, and overwhelmed. But detachment changes the game. When we learn to detach, we free ourselves from this endless cycle of emotional turbulence. We stop being at the mercy of every situation, every comment, every shift in circumstances. We gain control, not of the world around us, but of ourselves. Detachment is what allows a leader to stay composed in a crisis. It's what allows an athlete to focus on their performance rather than fear of failure. It's what allows a person to let go of a toxic situation without feeling like they've lost a part of themselves. And the truth is, the most powerful people in the world are not the most emotional. They are the most centered. They feel deeply, but they are not enslaved by those feelings. They face challenges, but they do not crumble under them. They listen to criticism, but they do not let it define them. This is why detachment is not weakness, it is strength in its purest form. Because real power is not about controlling everything around us. It's about controlling how we respond. And that starts the moment we learn to let go of what we cannot control. When we detach from outcomes, we focus on effort rather than results. We do our best, but we don't tie our self-worth to whether things go our way. When we detach from opinions, we listen without being shaken. We consider feedback, but we don't let someone else's words dictate our self-perception. When we detach from negativity, we stop being emotionally hijacked by external chaos. We learn to observe, to breathe, to act with wisdom rather than impulse. And here's the most important part. Detachment is not about withdrawal. It doesn't mean we stop engaging, stop feeling, or stop caring. It means we engage without being consumed. We feel without being ruled by emotions. We care without being controlled by the things we cannot change. It is the ability to step back, not to avoid life, but to see it more clearly, to approach every situation with the calm, steady presence of someone who understands. We are strongest when we are in control of ourselves, not when we are trying to control everything else. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much we plan, how much we prepare, or how much we try to control, things will not always go our way. People will disappoint us. Challenges will arise. Unexpected setbacks will test our patience and resilience. And in those moments, we have two choices: react or respond. Reaction is instinctive, it's emotional, immediate, and often impulsive. It's the sharp words spoken in anger, the rash decision made in frustration, the defensive posture taken out of fear. Reaction is how most people operate, driven by emotions, dictated by circumstances, constantly pulled in different directions by external events. Response, on the other hand, is intentional, it's measured, thoughtful, and controlled. It's the ability to pause, process, and choose the best course of action rather than being controlled by the first wave of emotion. The difference between the two is everything, because the quality of our lives is not determined by what happens to us, it's determined by how we respond to what happens. Think about two people facing the same difficult situation. One spirals into frustration, self-doubt, or blame. The other remains calm, assesses the situation, and takes action with clarity. The event was the same, but the outcomes are completely different, because their response was different. This is why mastering response is mastering life. We can't control people, but we can control how we respond to them. We can't control circumstances, but we can control how we navigate them. We can't control the emotions that arise, but we can control whether they dictate our actions. The strongest individuals, the ones who seem unshakable in the face of adversity, are not the ones who never feel stress or frustration. They are the ones who have trained themselves to respond wisely rather than react impulsively. They have built the discipline to pause, to reflect, to act with purpose rather than emotion. And the good news? This is a skill. It's not something we are born with. It's something we develop. It starts in small moments. When someone says something frustrating, instead of snapping back, we take a deep breath and choose our words carefully. When things don't go as planned, instead of panicking, we ask ourselves, what's the best move forward? When emotions run high, instead of letting them dictate our actions, we remind ourselves that feelings are temporary, but actions are permanent. With time, this practice becomes second nature. We stop being pulled by every external event, and we start being anchored in our own ability to respond with strength, with wisdom, with purpose. Because in the end, success, leadership, relationships, everything in life is shaped not by what happens to us, but by how we choose to respond. Life will always test us. There will be moments of frustration, disappointment, and uncertainty. There will be situations that challenge our patience, push our limits, and make us question our strength. But in every moment, we hold the power to choose. We can react impulsively, letting emotions dictate our words and actions, or we can respond with clarity and control. We can allow external chaos to pull us in every direction, or we can ground ourselves in inner peace. We can attach ourselves to outcomes and opinions, or we can detach just enough to see things clearly and move forward with strength. Because true power is not found in controlling everything around us. It is found in mastering ourselves. Mastering response is mastering life. And when we learn to create space before we act, when we recognize that emotions are temporary but actions last, when we understand that detachment is not indifference but wisdom, we step into a version of ourselves that is unshakable. Not because life got easier, but because we became stronger.